Tanner Markley, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited about this.
I'm super jacked right now. I'm really amped up. Just to let people know, we were just watching your show. We were watching Vive Le Cirque. Am I saying that roughly right?
Yeah, Vive Le Cirque.
Vive Le Cirque.
That's why I'm still wearing makeup, because
Yeah.
we have another show in like
I'm glad
2
you
hours.
kept it on, honestly. We're out here in Reno, Nevada, at the Grand Sierra Resort Casino.
Yeah.
And you were gracious enough to get Andrew and I some tickets to the show. I appreciate it, man. It was awesome to see you do your thing and to see everybody. Like, my mind is just a little blown right now. This is kind of I don't get to see a lot of that type of performance. It was so cool.
Yeah, this is a really good show too because of I think because Cirque du Soleil is closed right now, so we got all of the best performers. So, and it's like the only show that's open right now. So,
Yeah.
but it is a pretty low budget show compared to what it normally is because of COVID restrictions, and the theater was only able to, up until like 2 weeks ago, it was only able to be like a quarter full or something like that.
Okay. Did they undo that? Like, do you get to fill the theater now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
nice. Okay.
Yep, now it could be 100% capacity. Everyone can sit next to each other and get COVID everywhere.
Beautiful, beautiful. Everybody seemed to be having a great time. Honestly, like I was just as excited as the young children who were there, freaking out. It's just a great show. And what's cool for me is I know very little about this world. And just like, with most of the guests I get to have on the podcast, I'm excited to kind of learn a little more about it. So, but make sure I use the right terminology as we go. Okay. Right.
Yep.
So, would you say that you are an acrobat? Would that be an accurate way of putting that?
Yeah. So extreme sports athlete turned acrobat.
Okay. What was the extreme sports? Like, what were you doing before this?
So I grew up competing scooter. So I do the scooter in the show. I was a professional scooter rider for about 10 years. I rode for this company called Razor. It's like the biggest one.
Yes, very
And
familiar. They broke my
so-
ankles as a child, so that's good.
everyone asks me, how many times do you get hit in the ankle? And the answer is like never.
Well, not anymore, right? I
Not
mean, it
anymore.
looks like that thing is just an extension of your body, honestly.
It basically is.
Yeah,
Take it
you
everywhere.
just have to know it so well.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think it's like the most efficient form of transportation because you can just get off it. It's really fast. You don't like hit like if like you run over a tiny rock, it's not going to wreck you like a skateboard would.
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just got a lot of shit for it growing up, and everyone was like, "Why don't you ride a skateboard or why don't you ride a bike or something?"
Which is crazy because they're like scooters are way more popular now.
Way more.
Like skateboards are kind of out. Honestly, I mean, I guess they're really like long boards are still kind of in. But then everything's going electric now. Like even in the big cities where you can get
Yeah,
the
definitely.
electric scooters, when I see people plow by on those things and they are absolutely trashed, like they're trying to get a scooter DUI, and I can't believe more people have not died on those things, frankly.
Yeah, me too. I'm sure there has been like quite a few deaths, but yeah, because you have to be like those things are pretty fast and it's pretty easy to get wrecked on a scooter.
Right.
All it takes is one crack or something that's going the wrong direction, and boom.
And you're riding them through huge crowds of people at like top
Huge
speed
crowds.
and on gravel too. Like I'm thinking as a motorcycle rider, like when I see a scooter go over that gravel, I'm like, you have no idea what you're playing with. Like that back wheel just wants to go. It just wants to fly out from under you. Like
Yep.
that's some gnarly stuff. So I guess that's got to be a big part of the show. You guys got to make sure your stage and your ramps are all clean and swept off and everything. That could really
Oh yeah.
mess up your day.
Yeah. We've had little flaws. Like one time the ramp was like when they set the ramp down, they accidentally put it on a dolly. Like the dolly was a teeny bit under it, and the beginning of the ramp was about an inch off the ground.
Oh no.
So as we're going up, it was like hitting a giant bump right before, and that's on the takeoff. When
Right.
you obviously want to be as calm as possible, and you're hitting this giant bump.
What do you even do with that mid-show? Like, do you stop the show and be like, it's on a dolly, we need to stop for a minute? Like,
No, we just did it.
jeez.
It was a rough one, but no one fell or anything. We just toned down the tricks a little bit.
Oh, man. Well, I just watched you do a backflip on a scooter, dude. I mean, I'm very impressed by that. That's crazy. I feel like growing up, I was bad at pretty much anything on a board, except for one thing, actually, which was like when the ripstick came out, and that was such a big deal. I was crazy good on that. Like, I bought a caster longboard at one point. I think I still have it somewhere, or gave it to my
Yeah.
cousin or something. And like that was the one thing I could really get on and figured out how it worked. But
That's amazing that
everything
you
else
say
is-
that, actually, because do you know Ripstick is owned by Razor?
no, I didn't.
So Razor owns Ripstick. There's like the two major teams was Team Ripstick and Team Razor. And for like 10 years, I would fly around the world and compete and do shows and stuff like that. And so with the Team Ripstick people, my business partner that I own the shoe company with is actually the best ripsticker in the world.
That's awesome.
It's like a skateboarder, surfer, but they were getting paid to do ripsticks. So he
Right.
was like, you could do like triple kickflips on those things.
That's insane to me. To get
Yeah.
that thing off the ground is insane. Like it was one thing
Yeah.
to just like sort of be agile on it and like
Yeah.
you could lay out any obstacle course, that's fine. But man, to get that in the air is absolutely insane.
Yeah, they were. I don't know how anyone did those things. I could ride them around the bowls and stuff. I never enjoyed skateboarding, but I did enjoy riding the ripstick around.
Yeah.
Just because you can turn better and like, I don't know, riding bowls and stuff. But
You could turn like crazy. That's how I got all the girls in middle school, you know? Meaning no girls. But I remember that you could like ride straight at someone at the last second, you just cut it and go
Yep.
like right around them, and that was
Yeah.
all I did. But there was this dude in Texas who made these like longboard versions, and they were just like custom made. I had to wait like weeks for it and save up for it and everything. But it's because it had 4 wheels on it, but not in the corners. It was like 2 in line and 2 in line on
Yeah.
the back and the front. And you could just glide like down. You could just go down a sidewalk for miles on this thing. It was the best.
yeah, yeah, the ripsticks were cool. I loved them.
But you were on a scooter primarily, and
Primarily, I made a solid living off of riding a scooter, and I would claim that I was one of the, if not the first, person to make a living off of riding a scooter.
yeah, that's a claim to fame.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. Now you've got the would it be called a tramp wall, or what is it called? The
tramp wall,
a tramp
trampoline wall.
which of course, like most people I've seen on Instagram, the clips of you're running all over the wall and then you fall back down onto the trampoline, and
Yep.
this a new thing for you, or that you've been doing this for a while as
It's
well?
relatively new. It's about 4. I've been doing it for about 4 years or so. So I actually dated a girl who was doing tramp wall, and I had been kind of looking for a way out of riding scooter solely for a living because of just the nature of it. It's super dangerous. I face planted tons of times, have a lot of concussions and stuff. And tramp wall is equally as fun, just as scary, but much safer.
Mm-hmm.
And knock on wood, I have not really gotten hurt doing tramp wall at all in 4 years. And it's very low impact on the body, especially compared to the scooter stuff is very high impact. So I think it's much more sustainable, and my body doesn't hurt when we're done with that act. So,
Right. How do you, as a professional scooter
rider,
stunt person, what was the like context of that? Like, were you doing certain, like, I'm trying to figure out how the industry works in that way. Like, are you doing tricks for certain videos, or are you?
Yeah.
Where is it?
So there was a lot of ways that being like there was only like a few people on Razor. So when I was about 16, I started doing the Razor commercials. So that was one way. Commercials only happen like twice a year or so though. So, but it's a nice big paycheck when those do come around.
So you could probably still see those somewhere on like YouTube, like you going
Almost
by.
every Razor commercial, it looks like there's a bunch of little kids, and if you look closely, there's one really big kid, and that's me, and I'm the one who does all the tricks.
That's
basically.
awesome. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go YouTube all of those when I get home.
Yeah, if you look up like Razor Spark Scooter or something, that one's probably the easiest one to spot me because I do a backflip on it.
Okay.
There's like the Razor Jets, which are like Heelys. There's all kinds of Razor products.
But how does one get started in that field? Like, I'm assuming you just sort of liked him as a kid, and you were probably quite good at it.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, you got made fun of because it wasn't a skateboard. But
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up doing inline and skateboarding, and also team sports and stuff. But I always loved going to the skate park. In 2002 or 2003, rollerblading got cut from the X Games, and I was like, well, there goes my hopes and dreams of like that was like what I wanted to do, was be on the X Games.
Right.
And there was scooters, so BMX bikes were illegal in the skate parks, and my mom would not really let me ride them because you could get a ticket, and I didn't want to get a ticket. You also weren't allowed to ride a scooter, but it was easier to get away with, and I didn't want to skateboard. I personally don't like skateboarding. It's just kind of boring. You can't really do flips and stuff, and on a scooter, it's just, I don't know, like, it doesn't take too long before you can like jump and flip through the air and all that stuff. So I started scootering when it first came out in 2000, but I didn't take it very seriously until MySpace came out. And then I discovered that there was like a whole entire like scooter competition series and stuff that traveled around the country. And I was like, whoa, crazy. I didn't know that there was other people that took this stuff seriously. So as soon as I found out that there was this competition, it was in like 2005. It's called, I don't know, it's basically like the Nationals of Scootering, basically, in San Diego. And I like trained my ass off for it for like 3 months. And then I got first in amateur in like my first competition, and I got basically like sponsored by Razor at that point. It wasn't
Nice.
like a professional sponsorship where I was getting money, but it was like a flow sponsorship where they give me free parts and stuff. And eventually, like 2 or 3 years later, when I was 18, they gave me like a pro sponsorship where they were like, "Hey, do you want to fly around the world and like go to competitions and stuff?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll drop out of college tomorrow." So,
Did you really then? You dropped out of college?
Yeah, I dropped out of college the next day.
Wow.
Like they offered me, they were like, "Do you want to go to Australia and then to Panama and then to France?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I do." Like,
Nice.
and get paid. Like, of course, I'm gonna drop out of college tomorrow. So I was going to college for video production, and I already had a YouTube channel, and I was so much further ahead of everyone else in the class, and I was
Yeah.
already bored. I was like, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah.
They're like teaching people how to import footage, and I'm like, I already have full videos on the internet.
Right. Yeah.
So-
That's the college experience for a lot of people. I feel like. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't mean to be so down on college as a thing, but it just seems like unless you're going into like a professional career, like a lawyer, doctor, nurse, whatever. I mean, there's a bunch. I'm sure it's useful, but like I mentioned, like my degree was in theater. I don't really use that, to be honest. I use some aspects of it to like I know kind of what can look good when I'm creating things for my marketing company, but. And then I studied a lot of business, and I really felt like the business aspect was like, man, if you want to go into entrepreneurship, just go into entrepreneurship. Like,
Yeah.
take those 4 years and start as many businesses as you can. Don't necessarily go to college and put yourself in debt for it.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that people go to school for entrepreneurship because you can't really teach entrepreneurship. You either are an entrepreneur or you're not.
Yeah.
And the only way to become an entrepreneur and start your own business is just try things. Like my businesses that I own now, I have 3 that I run now that are currently like my main source of income, and they're all a form of my failed businesses that have slowly merged together. Like I originally
Right.
started with a clothing line. That didn't work. I started a social media marketing. That went well, really well, actually. But like I kind of wanted to sell products because I worked for Razor for a year. So my background was with selling products
Yeah.
and like designing them and that kind of stuff. But I was also kind of like tired of like extreme sports stuff. And then I got into the tramp wall, and I was like, I saw that everyone was wearing wrestling shoes, and I was like, what? Everyone's wearing wrestling shoes? Like, there's no acrobatic shoe brand? There we go. Like, so I saw like a hole in the market, and here we are. Like, basically, I'd started a stunt show before that, but I wouldn't really consider a business because it's like so like inconsistent when you
Right.
perform and stuff. You're just
Mhm.
going from contract to contract. I mean, when you look at what my shoe company is, it's basically my social media because that's how we market all the products. My clothing line, I just was never into clothes. Like I wear pretty basic stuff, so I was like, why do I have a clothing line?
Right.
Like I'm
Because
not
it seemed
into
like
it.
the best
Yeah.
thing at the time, probably,
Yeah. And then so that kind of formed into being shoes. We do have clothes, but we don't really sell them. It's more for marketing and stuff. And yeah, so then it's just kind of merged into what it is now. And now it's a footwear company, and we also do stunt shows. And then YouTube is like my 3rd main source of income.
Right. So the YouTube thing, okay, there's too much to talk about in far too little time because I have to let you go to your other show. So I'll try very hard. But the YouTube thing, you do like a whole series about like sort of like hacks for door dashing and like kind
Yeah.
of gig stuff. What's that all
Yeah.
about?
Okay, so I've had a YouTube channel for a long time, but it never made any money because I was doing dangerous stuff, extreme sports stuff, and you can't make any ad revenue on that type of content at least. So I probably like started taking YouTube seriously in 2017, but it wasn't until like 2015 probably. And it wasn't until like 2018 that I made any money, and that was off tutorials and stuff. And then when like COVID came and canceled my whole tour, like we had booked like 23 shows, and like I was going to make more money than I'd ever seen in my life. And then COVID cancels all 23 shows within 48 hours. And I was like, uh-oh, like I already paid for insurance for all these shows, and I was out like 10 grand just in things that I had already invested in for the tour to happen. So I was like, uh-oh, it's a good thing I have this like DoorDash thing that I had signed up for a long time ago, but I never used it. And so I started doing DoorDash, and I was like, let me look and see if there's any like tips videos because I'm not doing too well right now. There wasn't. So I made a video. It's actually called Postmates Cheat Codes because originally I was doing Postmates, but Postmates kind of sucks. And then that video blew up, and I didn't even like I uploaded it, didn't think about anything, and then next thing you know, Google sends me a notification like, hey, you're making a few $100s a month on this video. And I was like, wait, my channel's making money?
Right.
So
yeah.
like any logical person, I was like, well, let's start pumping out these Postmates videos. And like it started spiraling the channel. It's been growing like 1,000 subscribers every month.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty new. Like I never wanted to do gig driving tutorials and stuff, but it's more like financial. Like I'm trying to kind of open up people's lenses. Like people look too narrowly at the way they use gig driving, and I've noticed like everyone like goes and dedicates like 6 hours and tries to make as much money as they possibly can. But when I'm doing it, like I'm running my shoe company, I'm filming a YouTube video, I'm doing as many things as I possibly can while I'm sitting around waiting for orders and trying to basically run all 3 businesses and create the 4-hour work week around gig driving.
Right.
And at the same time, I'm making like $50 to $100 a day delivering food. So it's kind of turned into like giving people advice on how they can either invest their money, fitness stuff, because I was a personal trainer for years, just all kinds of financial or entrepreneur-based stuff.
Yeah, you're the king of the side hustle, man. I mean,
That's
it's
what a
really
lot of
like,
people have called me, actually.
Yeah, well, it's just you can see how you're doing it. I'm also a big fan of Tim Ferriss and 4-Hour Work Week and sort of all those concepts. And we've worked really hard to take our own business and turn it into that. It's why I think like my wife and I have so many different side projects that we're always doing. And we finally had on YouTube, she created a documentary. It's a full-length documentary about like our first year on the road. It's absolutely phenomenal. And it actually worked. Like it really started to blow up and people are really starting to see it. And that kind of blew our minds because for a long time we'd been creating content just in the dark, and you're just like waiting for something to hit, I guess. And you're like, man, the stuff we're making is good. But eventually YouTube finds it and realizes and the algorithm kicks in and helps you out. And that's pretty cool.
It took me like 3 years to get to like 2,000 subscribers. And it's been like 6 months and now we're almost about at 10. So
Right.
It just starts to, it's like, it grows exponentially, I like to say.
Yeah.
The revenue wasn't like I'm making $100 one month and then $200 one month and then $300. It was more like 100, 500, 2,000, and it just keeps growing,
That's
So
phenomenal.
the more, and YouTube is the ultimate lucrative business, I think, because there's especially if you're doing it right. Like I'm marketing my products on my videos, I'm making ad revenue, I have other sponsorship deals with other people. And there's just so many different ways you can do it, and you could do it wherever you want. So
Yeah, people try to make like their brands too, I feel like too segmented. If you have multiple businesses, you're trying like to separate them as much as you can. I've always been a big fan of just like put it all in one bucket. Like, cause you just don't know the opportunities that are gonna happen when you put them all together, all these different things that you're into and the different things you find. And it's cool to start to see that kind of coming together. But you've got a very ambitious mindset. Is that because you started doing this like sponsorship work so young? Do you feel like, or what's the driving force behind that?
it's a few things. I like to think that it comes from my sports background. Like I was a wrestler in high school, and like my dad is an extremely hard worker. I started doing construction at a pretty young age because he owned a plumbing business, and being the oldest kid, I was kind of designated to be his first employee. And I was always like, this is not what I want to do. And I don't know. I've always been, I think that the ambition for one comes from going to the gym every day. I think that's how everyone should start their day, is like wake up and your body is just running a lot better. So it gives you the energy. And I've always had a very, very big vision of like what my companies could eventually turn into. I've been around Razor for like 12, 15 years or so now. I've watched Razor grow as like into like it's the biggest toy company in the world. And I worked at the corporate office for 3 years in every single different department. So I have a very good understanding of how business comes together and how everything works together. Mm-hmm. So being like working for them for years, and I have this really, I would say it's like a fisheye vision of like how business can work and stuff after working for them. I would say that was going to college for me, Mm-hmm. And I like to think that no one works as hard as me. So like I'm always doing something. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to music. I only listen to informational podcasts. Like my favorite one is like the Patrick Bet-David podcast and Valuetainment and like other business related things. And for me, being someone who retired from competitive athletics, business is like my new it's like my new sport.
So you approach it like an athlete, which makes sense. It's just
Yeah.
that sole vision, that like really, really strong purpose of, because that's crazy, man. I mean, I work a lot too, but there's times where I like to not work also, and it just seems like, I mean, even as we're coming up here, like taking calls from the shoe company, like doing a bunch of other stuff, like,
Yeah.
like how do you recharge then? Or do you even feel like you ever need to recharge?
I just focus on different things at different times. Like there's different times of the year where I'm focusing more on different parts of the business. Like right now, I'm mostly focused on YouTube because of how quickly it's growing and the revenue is becoming quite substantial compared to like what it was for a long time.
So you're looking at those places you can really leverage. Like this is really working right now. Put
right
more
now,
into this.
it's like YouTube season. There's different seasons. We just finished designing skate shoes. So when those get here, I'm obviously going to shift my focus towards the skate shoes. And usually the way I market the shoes is I'll drive around the country, shoot different videos with all of my athletes, and then at the end of that, put all like the best clips together from all of those videos, and that's how we have our commercial. And then once the commercial's done, it's kind of like the company just kind of sustains itself. Like all I have to do is put in the advertising budget every week on Instagram, change like some things around, and it kind of just goes,
Yeah.
And then we of course have like famous UFC fighters like Tony Ferguson marketing our products as well. So obviously he was a humongous boost, and that all happened like because of COVID, because COVID basically like put me on my butt, and it was like, like I lost all of the money I thought I was going to have. And it was like, well, I got to turn this company into something substantial quickly, because who knows when we're going to be able to perform live shows again. Live shows has always been my main source of income. But I always see people like all of the other acrobats, they sit around between shows and do nothing. And I'm like, you guys are wasting so much time. Like you can't think of this as a day job. It's like a part-time job. Like you do it. I mean, we're busy like 2 to 3 hours a day, but there's the rest. Like everyone has 24 hours in a day. You got to use that as much as you possibly can. So between all of that, like between one show or something, I'll do all the editing for the YouTube channel. Then after, I'll come down here and I'll do like whatever website designing I have to do, or any of the shoe kind of stuff. So that's just kind of how I don't get burned out. I kind of shift my focus from one thing to another. And
so that's an intense amount of focus. That's an intense amount of discipline. How much do you sleep?
I sleep a lot.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
You get your 8 hours?
8 to 10 hours
Good.
a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Here's where I want to hear about some other stuff, because the Tim Ferriss thing is, I mean, his whole like theory is to not work all the time. Like it's about setting up these great systems, and you spend for sure a long time doing it, years doing it, whatever it takes to get it put together. But then it's about going and doing like whatever you want to do. So isn't it a little like, I don't know, a little meta if the thing that you want to do is like work? Like what is the what's the goal that you want to be doing with your time once these operations
think
are
it's
just running
work.
themselves?
I don't. Like everything I'm doing is fun and it's rewarding. Like the show, obviously we just got done performing a show, but that's like paid fun. Like I'm riding a scooter in a show, doing flips around, and I'm riding a go-kart in the show. Like it's not really work. I don't think the YouTube stuff is work at all, because for me it's so easy. I film one video, like there's no edits or anything, so it's real, other than just like typing the tags and stuff for uploading. It's not really too much work. I'd say the most work for YouTube is planning the videos and trying to have good ideas. And I would say the only work is like the shoe stuff, because we're obviously mailing out like 10 to 20 pairs of shoes a day, so that's probably the most amount of work. But I have I'm paying my brother to do that right now, so yeah.
You've got it set up pretty good.
I also think Tim Ferriss has I think of business as a sport. I think he thinks of it as like freedom,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be a billionaire. He probably is chilling with $1 million or however much he has,
He does good, but I mean, he definitely sort of preaches that like there's a limit, and like that where that limit is, it should stop, because what else are you gonna do with time? But hey, it's really not my place to tell anybody what to do. I think if you're doing what you like doing, that's the whole point. That's the entire point. If it's fun for you, then it's fun for you.
Yeah, it's totally fun for me. I'm obviously way newer of an entrepreneur than him too. So maybe he's burnt out and like just I don't know.
Yeah.
I like to take different like
He likes things like learning languages or learning learning different sports, and he
Yeah,
did like Muay Thai
that's-
and all that stuff. And
that's not super interesting to me. Although I am doing a lot of like MMA training now that we have like UFC fighters on.
yeah,
our
tell me
roster.
about. So I figured this out during the show. I was when I first saw Tony Ferguson was a part of what you're doing, and you're like hanging out with him. I was like, that's first of all, it's super cool. And then I figured out why he's a part of your thing, and it was when I was watching the contortionist do her thing, and her shoulders just sort of don't exist. And I realized that's what Tony Ferguson is here to do. He's here to make his elbows absolutely not exist, so that Oliveira can bend them backwards, and it's not even a problem.
Yes.
Am I right?
So Tony is a monster of a human being. By far the most savage, hardworking person
Insane.
I've ever met in my life. And just being around him is extremely inspiring. And his values and like his respect and like the way he treats life is like so like he's been my hero for years. And the fact that I'm like in business with him now is like the coolest thing ever.
Right.
And that happened organically. Like Tony followed me and I was like, no way. Did Tony just follow me on Instagram? And then he like followed Off Axis, and then I think it was probably like a year later. So Tony actually followed my page the week of the Conor McGregor versus Khabib fight.
Okay.
And Tony was obviously on the undercard, and he'd been my favorite fighter for years. He was actually the first fight I ever watched was him beating Kevin Lee for the undisputed or the interim lightweight championship.
Right.
And the whole time I could hear Joe Rogan talking about how unorthodox he was and how just looking at him fight compared to other people, I was like, that is the typical meaning of off axis, like unorthodox.
His style is
so.
I mean, just he'll just start walking backwards all of a sudden. It's like, where's this guy going? It's got to be insane to stand across from him like that.
He's like, I always said I was like, he would be the perfect ambassador of our brand because off axis means do it different. It's technically incorrect in gymnastics. So when I was learning acrobatics and stuff, trying to learn trample, all of the gymnasts, they're very closed-minded in their ways of training. Everything is doing it right or wrong. They are based on like how you do your flips, and everything has to be perfect. In the skate park, there's no rules, right? It's more of like an art competition versus a test, and the gymnastics is a test, and I don't like that. I think everyone should be able to do their sport however they want, and it's more of an art form. So off axis, the name was kind of like a slap in the face of all the gymnasts that were like talking crap to me about my form being incorrect. And I remember my old roommate said, "Can you do any flips that aren't off axis? Like everything is a little bit crooked." I was like, you know what? That's a good name for my brand, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So Tony was just like the perfect.
As the clothing company, and then now it's more about shoes.
No, the clothing company was just something that me and my ex-girlfriend started together. It was called Effable Apparel. Never went anywhere. I don't think we sold any clothes really.
Yeah.
So that was just like I was like, I know I want to start my own business. Like I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, well, what's the easiest business to start? Was a clothing line, and I knew one of my friends started Fatal Clothing a long time ago, and I saw how successful he was, and I was like, man, maybe I need to start a clothing line.
Yeah.
I knew it was a product that I wanted to start, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And the last thing I would have thought was shoes, but then when I saw that hole in the market, I was like, all right, time to figure out how to design shoes.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool. I mean, they look awesome for one thing. Definitely jealous of those pairs of shoes. Some sweet kicks. The thing that but where I'm trying to understand is, how does Tony Ferguson fit into the sort of acrobatic shoe?
Yeah, so he has his own signature shoe. They aren't all acrobatics. The brand started off as acrobatics, but now we're expanding to everything. So apparently, I didn't even know this, but trying to take a base of a wrestling shoe and turn it into an acrobatic shoe, I somehow designed like the perfect wrestling shoe. And now, like that 100 pairs of shoes that we sold earlier today, that was to a wrestling program. And now our main customer is wrestlers, obviously because Tony's a wrestler and he's our most popular athlete. Sure. All the wrestlers are buying his signature shoe.
That's awesome.
So we're actually in the process of taking the acrobatics out of the name. Like we just finished the whole patent work for the name off axis. So now we can take acrobatics out of the name. Originally, Off-Axis Acrobatics was my live show that I started.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I'm like feeling off today, in fact, because I don't mean to make the whole episode an MMA thing, but I tried to go to jiu-jitsu today, and I'm being crushed by all these places I'm traveling to that can't get like their schedules right on their websites and things like that. And I keep showing up to things that like don't exist or at a different gym or at a different time. And I try so hard to get it right every time. And I'm just like, geez. So being in the marketing world, it's fun for me because we're starting to work with some martial arts gyms, and I'm like, all right, I can actually fix this problem for myself. And so, but I think that's kind of like the mindset that you've got of like, let me fix this problem that I have.
Yeah.
And why don't we start there? But you and I are kind of in different worlds, like products and services marketing. It's a totally different thing. It's a totally different bag of tricks. And
yeah, originally I was in probably the exact same field as you. I would I would literally take over the whole marketing department and like show them how to. Because when I worked for Razor, I actually started the social media department for Razor. It was like 2013 when I was working there, and I was in sales, and there was this guy who was running the Facebook, and I was like, this guy has no idea what he's doing, what he's talking about. He's not even calling the tricks the right names or anything like that. And then I read Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vee.
Sure.
And I literally just like read the first 5 pages, and I went to the marketing VP. And I was like, hey, can I run the social media? Because that guy doesn't know what he's doing. And they're like, well, what do you know about And I literally just pretty much abbreviated the like 5 pages that I read in that book. And they're like, this guy knows everything.
Yeah.
And
Well,
basically, I got hired to do social media then.
That's the exact Gary Vaynerchuk thing. I mean, he's always saying like, stop listening to me. Like when you get it, you'll stop listening.
Yeah.
And I think you'd feel the same way about that book. Like when you get the concept, put the book down and go do that thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, I like your energy about it because I feel like there is a whole world out here. It's ready for conquering if you've got the ambition to do it. And there's a lot of people who are just half-assing everything that they do, and it seems like, man, I could do that better. It's a little hard to walk around the world like that, though. I mean, you got to keep the ego in check when you start feeling that way. Like, man, I could do everybody's job better than they could, you know?
I definitely think that. And as someone who grew up doing crazy stuff for a living, like jumping off 80-foot cliffs and like super dangerous stuff, I feel like I can do anything. And I really think that takes into play when you see my mentality over things versus other people. Like a lot of people would, as soon as they see the price of like how much it costs to design shoes and make them and stuff, they'd be like, yeah, I'll stick to clothing. Because there's a gigantic difference between like, you can start a clothing line with a couple $100. You're looking at 30 to 40 grand to start a shoe company. And I'm not scared of anything. So that mentality, I was like, yep, let's figure this out. And like, we can do anything, you know? If someone else has done it before, I can do it. And I've always thought of things that way. If someone else has done it, I can do it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. It's almost like because of what you were doing, it's like the fear of anything else starts to go away because you're exposing yourself to things that are actually scary. I've seen those videos of you jumping off cliffs. That's actually scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. I've talked about this before on the podcast because I've done too many jiu-jitsu episodes on this show. And it's that same feeling you get from doing a martial art, which is that like, everything else becomes easier after it. It's actually a quote from Fight Club where it's after Fight Club, everything else seems to have the volume turned down. If you're exposing yourself to real discomfort and real fear and real just like acute stress is what it is, then everything else becomes like, this isn't hard, this isn't difficult anymore. And we have to like stay disciplined enough to keep doing that. You have to find those things in your life. And I think it's not the same for everybody. Like, I bet the things that scare you are not the same things that scare me. And we both need to go and do the thing that scares us individually. It's completely subjective.
Yeah.
It can't be anything other than that.
Yeah. I don't think I'm really scared of anything, to be honest. Like, I guess holding pads for Tony was probably the scariest thing I've ever done.
I can imagine. Yeah. That picture was shocking. That's.
Yeah. When he's throwing his elbows and it's like, I'm like, man, I better put this pad here, otherwise I'm gonna get smacked in the face.
Watch those elbows knock out one too many people. To just stand there relaxed. Yeah, I get it. Well, I don't get it actually, and I'm glad for that. No, but that's super cool how you've kind of put everything together. And I think like this is something I rant about quite often, which is that everybody seems to go like so deep into their individual thing, and to like these days you can find the subreddit for your very specific thing, and everybody wants you to spend all day on your very specific thing, and people aren't becoming more than that. They're not being willing to dive into multiple other things. But the truth is that like when you become multifaceted, that makes everything interesting. It's the I'll always think of it as the Joe Rogan concept for me, because that's where I started to get it, which was, here's a guy who likes martial arts and comedy and podcasting and all these different things. You didn't see how they were going to come together, and all of a sudden they absolutely do. Like, I don't know how hunting and comedy are related, but they are now. And for whatever reason, those worlds are now tied together.
Yep.
And when people segment themselves so like heartily into their one thing, and they're surrounded by people who want them to only focus on that one thing, I just feel like you're missing out on so many other things you could be into. Isn't that the beauty of the world we live in? Like,
Yeah.
you have everything at your fingertips. You can do anything that you want. You have so much time.
Yeah, that's I think well, my YouTube channel is definitely turning into a collage of random stuff together, and so is our footwear company. Is now, instead of just being acrobatics, it's MMA, acrobatics, and soon will be the skate park stuff as well.
Right, and you've got the wrestling, which is from your background.
Yeah, and wrestling.
Yeah. Like don't tuck away those pieces of your life. Like, start to bring them up and be like, because that's any truly successful person. You look at their life story and you're like, oh, the moment where they were successful was where it was a culmination of all these things they were doing, and nobody saw how it was going to come together, and it totally did. And all of a sudden it just started clicking.
Yeah.
I forget who said this. I think this might be a Chuck Palahniuk thing. I'm a big Chuck Palahniuk fan. He's the guy that wrote Fight Club, and his whole thing was like, I think it was, you have to live past the age of 27 or something like that. Like, that's the age for men, and he's got all these weird examples through history where everything starts to come together at the age of 27 for whatever reason.
For me, it was actually at 27. Yeah, that's when I started all three of my businesses, was at 27 years old.
Yeah. It just locks in. Something happens.
I don't know what I think I woke up one day and I was like, it was like right after my ex and I had gone through a really bad relationship breakup, and I was like sitting there and I was super depressed, and I was like, man, I've really got to get my life together. And it was pretty around that same time where I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, okay, I don't want to ever be an employee ever again. I don't want to listen to anyone ever again. And that was when I basically had dropped Razor, dropped doing the other shows that I was doing, because I was an employee of them for, so I did All Wheel Sports, which is a show for like 10 years. And we were like on America's Got Talent stuff, but I was never in charge of anything. I was just a performer. So
right.
I wanted to eventually be like the guy in charge and stop having to listen to people.
Yeah, I totally get that. I feel lucky because that happened for me really, really early on. I worked for a terrible marketing company and then pretty quickly went, oh, I hate that. Like, I want to do good things, and I think I could do what this guy does, this owner of this company, except way better, and like not be an asshole to everybody around me. And I feel lucky that I had such a bad experience, like right off the bat.
Yeah, that's how it started for me too. I was like, man, there's so much waste in this company. Like, they're blowing money in the wrong places, and like, I could build the ramps, I could build the tramp wall, I could do all of this stuff, and instead of hiring it all out. And like, a lot of people get probably mad, like other show companies get mad at me because I can charge way cheaper for the shows and put it all on for way cheaper. Everyone's getting paid probably more to do my shows because I'm saving so much of that budget and putting it towards the acrobats and stuff. And generally, we have like the best acrobats working for us.
Right.
And I'm making money in multiple areas, which other show companies are not doing that. They're not selling products there.
Right.
Like, I can be like, oh, do you want a show for $10,000? No? Okay, $5,000, but I get to sell shoes there and put a gigantic logo on the wall.
Right.
So I'm hitting different areas of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I like it. You got me all energized now, because like, that's the thing, is there's people who really love putting up red tape all day, and then there's people, I think, like you and I, who love cutting through red tape all day.
Yeah.
Just being like, why are we making this so complicated? Like, we can fix this out. We can figure this out. We can do this better. We can skip all the BS. I really like the worst thing for me is always like dealing with a committee of people or dealing with like a larger corporation. It's always very hard for me to have the patience to go through that process.
Yeah.
And that's why I love, like, mostly I get to work with small business owners. I'm talking to the owner of that business, and I'm like, here's what we're going to do together, because I'm just so tired of going through the middlemen. Like, what's the point of that? Let's make some decisions, and let's make it easier. Let's make it better.
Yeah, I remember there's always like a joke at Razor, like, it takes a month to get the simplest tasks done, because you come up with an idea, you tell one person, you have to tell another person, and it's just like, by the time it gets done, it's like been a month because someone has forgotten to do that, and then there's like so many hands it goes through, and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and whatever it was at the time you were there, I guarantee it's worse now. Like those things don't get better. They only spiral backwards. This has been a fun time period. My wife Andrew, who you got to meet at the show, she has been spending like the last 2 weeks totally redesigning like our video department, which is the biggest thing that we do in our company. And I've watched her build these systems, and she's using tools to make this all work, to be able to outsource things to freelancers and to be able to bring everybody together in one place. And just like watching her do this, I don't have the brain for that, luckily. I like to joke that I'm sort of like her pimp, that she's all of the talent of what we do, and I just sell the package that she puts together. And it's had me in this mindset for a while now of just like watching this. And, you know, when things happen that seem like these real challenges, like, that's when you have the moment, the chance to redesign everything and say, all right, we're actually back at the drawing board. And at first, I realized that is so scary. The first few times it happens, you're like, oh my God, we're never going to make this work. And you're up all night trying to figure out how you're going to make it work. Now, when I see that like horrible air quotes thing come in, I'm like, oh, we get to step to the drawing board now. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you get to redesign everything. And it's some of the best, clearest moments that you have. Luckily for us, we get to do that while we are driving from Minneapolis to San Francisco. So this has been just a hell of a couple weeks, man.
Yeah, for sure. I love being like in charge of this stuff, because like you can see your own taste of like what you enjoy. Like especially if you're looking at our acts, that's the music that I enjoy listening to. That's like what I enjoy watching and stuff. So it's literally like a creation of my ideas. And same thing for the footwear company. It's like, I wanted to do extreme sports stuff, and I wanted it to be also very good for your feet and stuff, because I think that shoes like, no offense, but Converse are like,
I don't wear these for my
feet.
health. No, I just wear them because they're cheap.
Yeah, so like I'm trying to create my perfect image of like a product and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you look at the branding, and it's like you would totally know that I'm the guy that's running this whole thing.
Sure.
If you know me well.
Yeah. Is that your logo on your face? I'm trying to figure that out. Almost.
That is my logo on the
I
face.
thought it was. Just put that together.
I don't know. I might have wiped it off a second ago, but yeah.
It's still there.
They don't. They're not too picky on like the makeup. We're just supposed to be ninjas, so we got like they were just like, yeah, we need to put some lines on your eyes, and then like I was like, all right, one eye will be straight, and then the other one will be crooked. And then I was like, actually, I could just make my logo on my face.
Not just crooked;
right
it's going to be off axis. That's what he's going to do.
Yeah, so I just put my logo on one eye, and then this looks like a monster logo on the other eye, but it's totally not a monster logo.
It was so cool to watch the show. I mean, it's all these things that's just like, it's just like humans doing some things that you just can't believe humans can do.
Yeah.
You know, doing a one-armed handstand on somebody's head, like it's just nuts, and it makes me resubscribe to the idea of sort of live performance too, because as you're watching this, you're like, there's no way this comes across without you sitting right here, like sweating as you're watching them do this, like and especially like the laser act, whatever that laser act was, totally blew my mind. And I'm watching the person in front of me like record it on their cell phone, and I'm like, that's not going to show it. Like that will not. You're going to show that to your friend, like I went to this show, or you're going to post on social media or something, and it does not show what we were watching in that moment. That was like some serious stage magic happening. It's not the same as when you're there.
Yeah, I always tell people don't record the show. Like, live through the experience. But, of course, everyone's going to record the show anyways.
Right.
No one listens.
I think the one time I recorded most of a show was I was at like a Shins concert. It's my favorite band ever, and I'm like right in the front. But the thing is, I'm not like watching through my phone. I'm just like, all right, I would like to be able to watch these later and just remember that I stood like 5 feet from James Mercer and got to watch this happen. But yeah, otherwise just be there, right? Like,
yeah, just be there.
Everybody's trying to not be there. What did you come here for?
Yep.
We finally get to do this again.
Yeah, it's a live performance, you're not being paid to like record the performance or something, you know?
And don't save your friends the fear of missing out. Just be like, you missed out. Like, I'm not going to tell you what it was all about. It was awesome. You totally missed it.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, seeing the show live is, I wish I've seen our show live, but I've always been in the show.
Right.
So I've never really, there was one time where I got to watch one of the shows that I was doing for years. And like I was injured that day, and I was like, wow, this show's fucking crazy. I can't believe like I'm a part of this show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this one was too, I can tell you, as an audience member. everybody was just insanely talented. It was super cool to see. So I guess, if you're in the Reno area and listening to this, or if you're going to be around, I know you guys have shows all over the place, so go check it out. And I'm going to probably wrap us. Man, this is way too short an episode, but I got to snap some pictures and try to get you out of here. I'm sure you got to get some food and stuff before your next show. So tell people where they can find you. Give us all the handles for everything we need.
Yeah, so everything that's my personal stuff, like my YouTube channel and my Instagram, is all at Tanner Markley, TANNERMARKLEY. And then for the business stuff, it's mostly on Instagram is where I mostly focus, and that's Off-Axis Acrobatics. Soon to be just Off-Axis, though, when we get the rights to that name.
Cool. Sounds good. I'll link everything, of course, like I do on the episode, and I'll share a few pictures for the people who want to go check it out. As always, it's T. Hickson Life. I think that's it, man. Honestly, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I can't believe you did in between shows. That's insane to me. But
we could do it again.
Have fun. Yeah, absolutely. The next time I run into you, let's do this again, and maybe we'll get a little more time, because this is just I'm just going to be kicking myself the rest of the day because there's 100 things I didn't get to ask about. So thanks so much for taking the time, though. As always, everybody, thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.